Did you grow up in a step family? Do you have a blended family now? If divorce and remarriage have ever been a part of your life, you have experienced the challenges of creating a new normal and adapting to a new life. For many families, it is a struggle. Many just survive, and at some point, step-siblings go their separate ways. Today's guests, Willie and Rachel Scott, have seen both sides of this. They grew up in blended families and now have a blended family of their own. But the Scotts are not just surviving as a blended family. They are thriving.
Hello and welcome to Relationship Helpers. I'm your host, Vincent Ketchy. I'm excited to have with me today Willie and Rachel Scott. They're the founders of the ministry Better Than Blended, that is dedicated to building blended families that thrive. They are authors of the book Better Than Blended, Taking Your Step Family from Surviving to Thriving. Thank you for being with us here today.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, we're excited.
Well, tell us a little bit more about yourself, about your background, how you met, how you started this ministry.
Well, we met maybe around, what year was that? 2008. And so my husband, he had 3 children. I had 2 children. And then when we blended together, now we have a total of 7 children. So he was widowed and I was divorced. And then we ended up meeting and now we have 7 children together. So that kind of gave us the motivation for the ministry.
Okay. So now you have 7 children together. And yes. I think you were mentioning that from your background, both of you came from blended families as well.
Right.
Yes.
We both did. I actually didn't even realize that I was part of a blended family until we actually started doing this as far as the ministry. But she knew that she was from a blended family, and that was one of the motivating factors for her to actually for us to start Better Than Blended.
Yeah. So Willie, you didn't really know there was a difference.
No, not really. I mean, I knew that I had a brother and sister because my dad was remarried, and I had a brother and sister there. And then I had my brother and sister with my mom, who I stayed with, my primary parents who I stayed with. But I didn't know that it was titled that. It was just that was my brother and sister over there. This is my brother and sister over here. And I didn't really even know to call it blended family or even step family. Honestly, I didn't have a relationship with my brother and sister with my dad on my dad's side. I knew them and we see each other here and there, but we didn't have a relationship like my biological brother and sister.
Right. It wasn't very close.
Right. Correct. Yep.
And we found that's really common that a lot of people don't recognize that what they're in is a blended family. And so that's, some of the challenge in them actually seeking our help because they haven't identified what their dynamic is.
Right. They don't really understand what's going on.
Right.
And we found that similar dynamic of the relationship not being close that's one reason that my wife, just the why she wanted to start Better Than Blended was because of the fact that she also had a relationship, had other brothers and sisters, but didn't have close-knit relationships with those outside of the home. And our desire was that we didn't want that to happen with our kids. We didn't want our kids to go off and not have good relationships with each other as they got older, as they got grown, and kind of went their separate ways.
Yeah. So Rachel, you wanted your children really to know each other well and be comfortable with each other.
Right. Absolutely. There were so many holidays that I never had a holiday growing up where my entire family was around. I never experienced that. And so once he and I got married, that was just something that I was really motivated to, is to have holidays together, to celebrate birthdays together, those things that I didn't get to experience. And so that kind of birthed the idea of what we're doing now.
Mm-hmm. So you wanted this family time together during the holidays.
Right. Family time together during the holidays, memories, vacations, all the things that I saw around me, but realized at some point that I wasn't, my story wasn't going that way.
Right. You saw that your family was missing these traditions and you really wanted that for your children.
Absolutely, yes.
So you started, it sounds like, studying this and learning more about how to have a healthy family, how to have that. How did you progress down that road?
Well, I would say maybe it was only about 6 months where it was just me. I think the initial idea of it was me. And then as I was progressing through it, a lot of people said, this would really be awesome for you all to do as a couple. So he was doing a lot of the background of it anyway. But that's when we kind of started realizing that if the couple could come together and understand some of the challenges and the dynamics and work through them as a couple, it would just mean so much more, and it would really help the whole family dynamic to change.
So you were encouraged to work on this together, and so what did you learn were some of the challenges of blended families?
Wow. I would say discipline is probably one of the number one challenges, especially from the male perspective. And rejection is probably the number one challenge from the female perspective.
Yeah, so talk about that discipline. What are some tips, or what would you say to some of these blended families that are listening out there? Some tips you would have about disciplining the kids?
Well, one thing that we actually wrote about in the Better Than Blended book was discipleship means discipline, or discipline means discipleship. And with that, what I learned from it, because that was one of the high challenging points for me, and it's mainly because I think that's for a lot of men, just because authority is being tested, or there's a sense of lack of respect or something like that. So as a man of the home, you want to be able to, kind of put your foot down and say, hey, this is what needs to happen, and you want the children to listen. So what I've learned over the process, and what we learned together over the process, is that disciplining for the sake of disciplining is punishment. But what we want to do is we want the children to actually not desire to do that thing again. We want them to actually learn something out of the process. So that's where discipleship comes in. So the consequence that's set in place should match the action, or whatever was done. There should be a consequence that matches that, and that will actually teach them not to do that thing again, or to actually change the desire for them to want to do that thing again.
Yeah. So you want your children to learn your moral standards and why you have those, why that's important.
Correct. Yep.
And so it sounds like part of going along with the consequences is this conversation with your children, explaining who you are and why you do this or why you don't do this.
Right. A lot of conversation. Sometimes you'll see them, they be like, I know we're on the radio, so you can't really see it, but you'll just hear the sigh. You'll see the eyes, the head drop down, like, oh, here we go again with this conversation. And it actually is more effective. At first, I didn't believe it until my wife was telling me. She's like, you don't have to yell. She's like, you don't have to yell. You don't really have to raise your voice. She's like, the children already respect you, so you don't have to do the extra stuff. All you have to do is just talk to them. Mm-hmm. Just talking to them sternly or talking to them firmly is the best way. And I found that I grab one of the kids, and if I see they do something that they shouldn't have done, I'll be like, okay, let's talk about that. And sometimes they'll be like, okay, here we go. And sometimes they'll talk to me about it. And then other times they won't do that again because they don't want to have those long conversations.
They don't want you to talk to them.
Right.
Okay. All right.
Especially if it's the same thing over and over again. Sometimes we get in the season where we have to repeat those things because God is working on something in us. So
I think our teenager is trying to outsmart us right now, because the way she does it now, she sends text messages.
Okay.
And so, but then what she doesn't realize is we'll respond via text, but we'll still have the conversation when we get home. So you just made the conversation even longer.
Right. So the text can't get around the conversation.
Absolutely not.
So it sounds like a hallmark of this effective discipline is consequences, but conversations about those consequences, really communicating well to them.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
And so you've gotten resistance from that conversation, but in the long run, it's really healthy.
Right.
Exactly.
And sometimes, Vincent, the consequence could be the conversation.
Oh.
I mean, honestly, sometimes the consequence doesn't even have to be. I found in the past, I thought that there had to be a consequence every time. And that we would talk about it, but there had to be something that was taken away, something that was done, because this action shouldn't have taken place. But I've come to realize that every time a consequence doesn't need to be set in place. Sometimes a conversation is the best approach, and it actually gives the best result.
Okay, so it's very effective depending on the child and what's going on.
Right.
Just hearing that authoritative talk, not that you're yelling at them, but just that you're talking to them, and just that you're an adult and that you're their father or their stepfather.
Right, and it's really showing them that you care. that you care, that you love them. And that's the one thing my wife always says is, we love you, but the world doesn't. So that's one of the first things she'll say. And Grant, she'll ask them, so what do we say? We love you, and they'll say, but the world doesn't. And then she goes into explaining to them what that means. Like, this is why we're having this conversation.
This behavior now.
Right.
This is why we have to deal with this behavior, because if you get out in the real world and you're doing the same thing, it's not going to be acceptable. So if we let it slide now, then you're going to think that it's okay. You're going to get out there and they're not going to be responding with just a pat on the back or let me just pull you to the side and talk. So
right. So they'll struggle in other areas. So with their work or at school or at church or wherever it may be.
Right. Yes.
So you talk about one of the areas that there's a struggle with blended families is discipline. And you mentioned the other was
rejection.
Talk to us more about rejection.
So for a lot of women in the blended family, we find, and we've experienced and I've experienced just that rejection piece where maybe you're not getting the responses out of the stepchild or the adopted child that you would like. And so you're putting forth all this effort. You may be cooking, you may be making yourself an active part in their life, but then the response that you're getting back is just complete rejection. And sometimes that's because of a loyalty issue to maybe a biological parent. Sometimes they just really don't know how to respond to it. So one of the things that I really encouraged women to do is to really stay focused on the assignment that God has given them, which may look different than what they may have come into the picture expecting. So the rejection piece comes and it's a real feeling. And I tell, women that you're feeling rejected and that's normal. And you will feel you will feel that way. But if you stay focused on the assignment and figure out what is my perspective, I've been given an outside view in this child's life for a reason. I see things that maybe other people don't see. And that gives me the opportunity to pray intentionally and specifically for issues that may arise that other people may not be able to pray for because they're just trying to engage the child or keep the child on their side or, however the dynamic may look. So I just really encourage them to just be prayerful and know that their assignment is prayer and whatever else they've been, God has given them to do in that child's life.
Yeah, so you don't want them to react to that rejection, but really just to stay the course and be consistent with that child and how that you interact with them.
Right, absolutely. Because sometimes we come into the picture and we think, okay, we're, an additional mother, or sometimes what I've seen is women are trying so hard to not replace the mother because they've been told, oh, you're trying to replace the mother or you can't replace me, that they don't even fulfill the assignment that they're supposed to fulfill, which is sometimes an outside perspective of prayer, which is sometimes, okay, I am called to be a godly example of a wife to their father. But because I'm so busy trying not to be mommy, I'm not even doing this other job that I should be doing well. And so when they zero in and understand that, let's remove all the titles and remove all the expectations. What is the reason that you, out of all the people in the world, was chosen to be a stepmom or an adopted mom to this child? Then we can move forward and they have a clear understanding of their assignment and the rejection doesn't impact them so much.
So it doesn't impact them so much when they just focus on themselves, just being a godly Christian or just a godly adult in this child's life. Right.
And also focusing on being that outside perspective of prayer for that child. Because, in any situation, when you're in the situation directly in it, you don't see what the outsiders see. So usually as the adopted mom or the stepmom, they have an outside perspective of what is causing this child's behavior to be this way. They notice things differently, and then they can take that and they can have some conversation sometimes with the biological dad, or they can just take it to God and say, I don't feel comfortable talking about this, but God, you see this situation. I'm asking, that you will intervene. So it's just like a prayer partnership.
Right. So they really have a unique opportunity by seeing that outside view that the others can't.
Yes.
So you work with, so we talked about discipline as a struggle. We talked about rejection of the parents as a struggle. Are there other struggles that you've seen with blended families?
I would just say one of them I would say is one of the first things we actually first chapter of the book is writing your own blended family story. One thing that we did is we noticed after a while that we brought in our parents, pretty much how they were raised, how they raised us, whatever their their ideology was. I brought in my thoughts as far as, and that actually affects discipline. It affects finances. It affects so many different things because, this is how we were raised. This is what we did when I was growing up. And she would say, this is how I was raised and this is what I did. And when I was brought up, and I turned out okay, and I'm looking like, I turned out okay. And we say, so
we're both
wrong?
right?
Yeah, so we both right. So are we both wrong? But
right.
at the end, we figured out that neither one of us was right or wrong because at the end of the day, we had to find what worked well for our family and for our story, and we couldn't base our story off of somebody else's story, off of a story that we lived individually. We had to write our own story together and find the boundaries and the dynamics and everything that just made that flow well.
So it sounded like you really had to do a lot of digging and understanding what you grew up in, the kind of environment you grew up in.
Yeah, and we had to do a lot of paying attention because some stuff happens in your life and you kind of just and you wonder why that happened, and you just kind of like, man, I wish that wouldn't happen. Over time, we start to pay attention to those things that were happening, especially when it was repetitive. And like, okay, we're supposed to learn something from this. Like, what do we need to learn out of this situation? And then eventually we got to the place where we start paying attention sooner, because before it would take us a little longer. And now we pay attention a lot quicker at the things that we experience, because we know that it's bigger than just us. It's for somebody else as well.
It's for the children, and you're not wanting to repeat that with their generation, some things that could be healthier, I guess. Right.
And the other thing I was going to jump in and say that we're noticing is just the dynamic of dating. That is becoming a major. That's significantly impacting the marriages, because they went from dating all the time and hanging out to maybe once a year, maybe once a quarter. To see blended family couples that are dating is very, very rare. And so all of these real life issues are happening, but they don't have any fun anymore. So it's really hard to say, okay, let me help you with all of these issues. And we haven't, the foundation of just them being friends or dating hasn't taken place to even make the soil soft enough to say, okay, well, now let's deal with the issues. So that's another major thing that we're noticing, is that couples, these blended family couples, aren't dating. They're going to court for court battles. They're going back and forth for parental challenges, but they're not even dating. So
they're not making time to have fun together.
Right. We recently started a group specifically for that, just because and in the group we ask those questions. As far as, one of the questions is, how often do you date? So that's where she gets some of that information from. We just noticed that the frequency of dating was so low, and we just I don't know, it was sad. It broke our heart, in the sense of, we know that that's one of the issues because we experienced it. We experienced the fact, and it just happens naturally because we have 7 kids, so we have some kids that are in gymnastics, some kids playing football, some kids doing cheerleading, and you trying to run, do all these things, and you devote all this time to make sure the kids are happy and that they are active and they in all these activities, and then they got programs at school. And then by the end of the night, and if you add in going to work 9 to 5 and everything else, by the time you get home, fix dinner, help them with their homework, you tired. And then the guy, of course, is looking for some intimacy from his wife at the end of the night, so they can connect. And then at the same time, she's looking for intimacy before they get to the bed at night, so that she can connect. But then neither one of you, but all the other things in between kind of pull you guys apart and cause this division there. And it just caused the marriage to get stale, and it just makes it hard for you to date. So that's one of the things that we really want to try to focus on is helping people, trying to figure out how to help people date more.
So it's easy for the marriage to kind of be set on the back burner, and all the focus go to all the kids and make sure all the kids' needs are met.
Right. Yes.
So what are some tips that you would give some of our listeners that are blended families that struggle with this dating or setting aside this time just for the couple?
Well, one of the things that helped us is to think outside of the box. So I think just by the nature of how things work, we think we have to date on weekends. Well, my husband and I, we actually have made Mondays our date nights.
Okay.
And we love it because everything's like half price on Mondays for one. You can always get a good deal on Mondays.
Save money, yeah.
Right. And and even when you think about a babysitter, it's easier to find someone during the week that's already in the routine of working that may say, okay, when I get off work, I'll come over, than them wanting to give up their weekends. So that's one thing we've done, is just completely just thought outside the box and said, we're gonna start the week off right by making Mondays our date night. And so that would definitely be one thing. The other thing I would just recommend is planning, like putting the date night on your calendar, just like you would do anything else. If you don't put it on your calendar, then you don't give it value. But when something's on your calendar, you try your hardest to stick to it. Life happens. I think we only have missed like one so far, but life happens, and that's understandable. But you feel more intact with that date when you actually put it on your calendar.
Right. And you have to make it a priority too. Right. So when you put it on the calendar, don't delete it or move something else in its place. Like, you put it on the calendar so that when you go to schedule the kids' things, then everything is scheduled around that.
Mm. So the kids' activities don't bump that out.
And you tell them like, well, hey, that's our date night. So that activity you won't be able to do, maybe talk to the coach and say, I can't come on Mondays, or, whatever arrangement needs to be made so that the kids can see that. My parents always made marriage a priority.
Right.
I heard someone say, especially when it comes to a blended family, that the last relationship that a child sees is the relationship they model. And so when a child has been has maybe seen a divorce or maybe seen, something else, and the last relationship that they see is that, that the couple or the parents date, that they cuddle together, that they hug, then that's more likely what they'll model than maybe the negative relationship that they saw before that.
Right.
So you're really modeling this for all 7 of your children. They're seeing that, hey, mom and dad, they're putting their marriage above football, above dance, above gymnastics, above choir, above...
Yes. We do the best we can. We are far from perfect, but we definitely do the best we can to just, model in front of them what we want them to experience in marriage.
So establishing that date night and putting those boundaries around it and making it a priority is something that's very valuable, or one of the best ways, it sounds like, to help a blended fellow, to help you stay connected.
Yes, for me, before I would even feel comfortable telling them to do anything else, like go get a workbook, go to a workshop, go to this, I would dare to say, I need you all to start dating first. I need you all to start dating again. Let's talk through some date things so that this soil can get a little bit less hard. We need to get the soil soft so that when we start dealing and tackling some issues, you're willing to go there, because now you kind of developed a friendship again. You've kind of started having fun again. And because you value those moments, you've opened up even during your date nights. So now when it's time to tackle real life issues that are, maybe an everyday occurrence or weekend occurrence, you're more willing to negotiate through the process. Yeah.
We believe that in order to have like a truly authentic, thriving family, that you have to have that in your marriage first. Like that what's on the head trickles down to the rest of the body. So if your marriage is thriving, then ultimately I believe it'll make it easier for you to grasp how to get your family to thrive.
So tell us about a time when there was just kind of a light bulb moment or aha moment that you had.
I would say for me, the aha moment was when I really embraced the reality that I didn't have to fall under this title of stepmom and do things like a specific way. I had to do what God had assigned me to do in their lives. Prior to that, I was trying to be mommy, especially since they had lost their mom. And I felt like I had to fill that role. And, my husband felt like I needed to fill that role. But one day, literally, it was like one day I was just overwhelmed. I was struggling being a biological mom. I was struggling being a stepmom. And I just began to cry and just seek God and figure out what I can do in this situation. And then he said, well, whoever told you needed to be that? I felt like he was telling me, you put this on yourself, but all I want you to be is a godly example of a wife and a godly example of what a mother looks like to their younger siblings. And then the relationship will naturally happen. And that's exactly what happened.
So you kind of let go of all those assumptions.
Right. Let go of all the assumptions, all of the expectations that everyone else had placed on me, and just became very clear on my assignment in their lives.
How about yourself, Willie? Was there a certain aha moment that you had?
I was trying to think while she was talking. I'm like, I don't know.
Probably.
Because when I think of aha, I just think of like, oh, it just like a light bulb came on. But
Yes.
I guess discipline would be one of those. It just took me a while. It really took me a while. That was a real struggle for me as far as just because I'm very, and I think a lot of men, I can say most men because I don't want to generalize people, but I think a lot of men are very logical. So and we're task oriented. So it's like, okay, I asked you to do something, and so the next response is you do it.
Right.
And so when that doesn't happen, then it equals, in my mind, disrespect or something like that. So I think that was the biggest thing for me was me knowing that I didn't have to yell, and seeing fruit come from me talking softly to them.
Yeah, not lording it over them, not yelling at them, not being mean or so.
Right.
Tell me about what are you most excited about today with your ministry?
Wow. I'm just excited to see the growth in more couples connecting. So we have actually a conference coming up in 2018. It's going to be in October. And I'm just really excited for couples to come together and have a place in a community where they don't feel like people don't understand their story and people don't understand their challenges. I think that's probably one of the greatest statements I've heard from blended families is that they feel alone. They feel like no one really understands what they're going through. And that's partially true. It's a world all in of itself oftentimes. But just to be able to come together and encourage each other and to have fun together and to just encourage these couples to date again. Like, I'm so excited about that.
So you enjoy providing support for these families that are struggling.
Yes, absolutely. And just hearing the stories come back of how, their marriage was at one point, but after connecting to the ministry and finding just a support system, it's kind of shifted the dynamics of their marriage and their home overall. Like, that is just a blessing, not anything for us, but just to see that this vision had so much purpose behind it.
Right. So as these people share their stories of how their families have become healthier, it just sounds like it invigorates you, Willie, and other people there.
Yes, absolutely. There's the excitement and the joy that comes from that is amazing. And then I love when they share their story with other people, so that they're like their own our marketing team, so to speak, because just in them sharing their story with other people, they know that there's a place that they can actually go to and find the encouragement, find the support, and just find the resources that are necessary.
Okay. Well, we're right down here toward the end. We're at our final lap or speed round. Tell me, what has been your biggest stumbling block in your relationship with God?
Myself.
Okay.
Yeah, I definitely would say that's what it's been for me too.
I would say the biggest thing in that is just not having full trust that he would do what he said he does, not understanding his promises and not trusting him completely. And so when I overcame that, and it's always a journey, of course.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, and my biggest one is myself, but is the grace factor. It's really not accepting the fact that grace abounds. Really, that and always kind of condemning yourself for the things you do.
So you have these negative statements going on in your mind,
right? And that could keep you stuck sometimes. So that's where my biggest gap was at.
Okay. What is the best advice you have ever received?
Pray together.
Okay. So pray together as a couple.
Pray together as a couple, and every day, like if possible. That's the best advice. Anytime we didn't do that, we notice a difference.
Yeah, and I would say outside of that would be to outlove each other.
Okay. And who do you admire the most, other than a biblical figure?
For me, I'm gonna say Miles Monroe.
Okay.
He's I love just the intelligence, and he's really in depth as far as the teaching he teaches. So for me, Miles Monroe.
That would be hard for me right now. I would say I'm really encouraged by Chip and Joanna Gaines.
Yeah.
Okay.
They remind me a lot of us. So I definitely would say they're at the top of my list right now.
Okay, all right. And what is your favorite book or most influential book that you've read other than the Bible?
Oh, that's so hard. I've read so many.
Screwtape Letters is one of them for you.
Any C.S. Lewis, just about.
Okay.
I'm a huge C.S. Lewis fan. So
okay.
I'm trying to think. For me, it would be I don't know. I, I don't know. Screw Tape Letters is one of them because I didn't read. She actually read it, but even in the process, I felt like I read it because in the process of her reading, she told me so much of the story.
Right.
It was really impactful. But I like Chip and Joanna Gaines, the book that they just wrote, Magnolia Story.
Okay.
That one, just because we recently read that, but we relate so well to them. It just was. I was encouraged. I was like, you got to read this. You got to read this. I was trying to tell her the whole story, and she's like, "Stop telling me! I want to read it for myself."
So y'all read books, and you're so excited you tell the other one all about it before you have a chance to read it.
Yeah, we try to read. We actually try to read books together.
Okay.
Like she'll pick up one. Sometimes, and there's times when we don't, but a lot of times we'll try to select books that we can read together because we like to grow together.
Okay, great. So, tell us, what is your most effective relationship habit?
I would say
dating.
Yeah, dating is yeah. I'll definitely say dating. Since we've been dating and spending more time together, it's just been a closer relationship, less division, less arguments, or heated fellowship, what we call it, but less of that.
Yes.
So you felt a lot more connected.
Yes.
Right.
Okay, so we're right down here toward the end. Share with us some parting wisdom and the best way to contact you.
So parting wisdom, I would say, is to just stay encouraged and find a community, find a good community that understands and can support you, and just continue to pray together as a couple. And the best way to contact us would be
the website, betterthanblended.com. Betterthanblended.com is the website, or you can just email us at info@betterthanblended.com. That's info@betterthanblended.com.
And our Facebook page, we have a Better Than Blended Facebook page and a Better Than Blended Facebook group.
Okay. Well, thank you, Willie and Rachel. We really appreciate you being on Relationship Helpers.
Thank you for having
Thank you for having us.
You're welcome.
Thank you for joining us today on Relationship Helpers. It is our hope that you gained some valuable information. For the show notes and more information on today's topic, please visit www.relationshiphelpers.net. Again, that is www.relationshiphelpers.net. If you enjoyed our show, please go to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and review. If you had questions or concerns about our show, please let us know about this as well by going to our website, www.relationshiphelpers.net. Thanks again and have a blessed week. Note that accuracy and authority in regards to the subject matter covered today is not a replacement for professional care. Neither the host, the clinicians, or the guests are rendering clinical or other professional advice. Seek professional help if you need it.